previous video made me realize that I needed to talk about my dad a little bit more. Father's Day. You know, a lot of times it's less about what our dads do and more about what they don't do, right? That makes them memorable or gives them the integrity for which we admire them. My mother was an outspoken person. She ran the show at home. Dad, having been raised essentially an orphan, never knew his parents, ended up running away from the home as a ward of the state of Massachusetts, and riding the freight trains and ending up in California and joining the Army and meeting Mom on a train and ending up in Erie. Dad was just happy to have a roof over his head and 3 meals a day and a warm bed to sleep in and a family he could call his own. He asked very little of life because he had had almost nothing until he married our mother. Mom was raised by a very intact family, very rigidly dictated to by a series of tenets and morals that were propagated and promoted by a sect, a Christian fundamentalist sect called the Plymouth Brethren. And there were no boys in my mother's family. There were just the 4 girls, and so they all grew up to become quite not masculine in their appearance or masculine in their attitudes, but they took on the role of, they ruled the roost at home. Mom was outspoken. She would stand up against injustice, and I would often hear her on the phone really reaming somebody out. And guess who inherited that trait? Guess who? And so Dad, when the church wrote that letter to my mother and kicked her basically to the curb, silencing her for her behavior, they asked my father to sign that letter and he refused. He was one of the elders like the rest of them, but he refused to sign a letter against his own wife. It's what our dads don't do that are the most admirable traits they possess oftentimes. Thank you, Dad. You were a good dad and a good husband.